From NJ.com, this is Talk is Cheap, a New York Giants podcast. We're talking Big Blue football all year round.
Welcome on in, Giants fans, to episode 148 of the Talk is Cheap podcast right here on NJ.com. As always, I'm Matt Lombardo, joined by my friend and colleague Ryan Dunleavy. And Ryan, as we head towards Week 15 of the NFL season and the Giants are on a collision course with Marcus Mariota, Derrick Henry, and the Tennessee Titans, this team, somehow, some way, after winning 4 of their last 5 games and starting the season 1-7, remains in the hunt for an NFL playoff berth.
Yeah, it's unlikely as it seems, Matt. I mean, when they were 1-7, and we were talking about the number 1 draft pick and backup quarterbacks and whatnot, and they've got themselves to 5-8 now. And really, probably what's scary is they probably should be 7-6 if they didn't give away 2 games. But yeah, we're talking playoffs, which the Giants haven't been to the playoffs 6 of the last 7 years. So just getting into this position. Look, they've got some fortunate breaks, beating 4 out of 5 backup quarterbacks, but Giants aren't in position to give any wins back.
And a third-string quarterback in Mark Sanchez, who the Giants defense simply humiliated on Sunday at FedEx Field. We're going to break down that game. We're going to look at what it takes to make the postseason and kind of break down all of the news of the week heading into Sunday's game. And if you like what you hear, we would love it if you would subscribe on iTunes and the Apple Podcast Store. Leave us a 5-star review. It really helps grow the show and lets us know what you want to hear us talk about. And of course, you can also find us on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Stitcher, and all your podcast platforms, including Google Play and iHeartRadio. Ryan, before we dive into what happened on Sunday and previewing next week's game against Tennessee, I know you wrote a post earlier this week breaking down what has to happen for the Giants to make the postseason. And of course, that starts with winning out, which is no small feat for this team because you're not going to be facing Mark Sanchez and Chase Daniel and Nick Mullins over this final stretch. You're facing Marcus Mariota, a former top 5 draft pick. You're facing Andrew Luck, who of course is playing like a franchise quarterback again, and a Dallas Cowboys team in Week 17 who might or might not have something to play for. So it starts with winning out, but the Giants also need a lot of help. Why don't you break down what has to happen for this playoff dream for the Giants to become a reality?
So it's really a 6-step plan, and you mentioned the first step is the Giants have to win out. And then the Vikings have to lose 2 of their final 3, Matt, which are against the Dolphins, Lions, and Bears.
Okay.
That could be difficult. I mean, the Vikings are the 6th seed right now. Losing 2 of those 3, Dolphins, Lions, and Bears, I don't know.
Just fired their offensive coordinator, John DeFilippo. That could spark a team or it could just send them into turmoil. Will be interesting to see what plays out there.
Then the Packers have to lose 1 of their final 3. And the Packers have the Jets, Bears, and Lions. Obviously, they're underdogs to the Bears.
Yep.
The Panthers have to lose 2 of their final 3. They have the Saints twice and the Falcons.
That's that's doable. That's conceivable, especially the way they've played of late.
They've gone in the tank, really, since beating the Giants. And then the Eagles have to lose 2 of their final 3. They have the Rams, Texans, and Redskins.
And that seems most likely out of any of this because the news broke on Wednesday that Carson Wentz could be done for the year with a back injury. They travel to the Rams.
And Nick Foles is terrible. I mean, the guy never has done anything in his career.
They go to the Rams in a revenge situation for LA after the Eagles beat them last year, not only to lock up the NFC East, but really torpedoed any chance that LA had at getting a bye. I think the Rams are an odds-on Super Bowl favorite coming out of the NFC. Then you go to the Texans, who've only lost once since beating the Giants back in Week 3. I think it's very conceivable that the Eagles could lose 2 of their last 3 games. Can all of these things happen?
There's still one more, and this is the one most people have forgotten. And I've seen scenarios out there that don't include this, and I guess it's because people are writing off the Redskins, but you can't just write off the Redskins. This has to count. The Redskins are ahead of the Giants. They have 6 wins. Yep. The Giants only have 5. So if the Redskins win out, they beat the Giants. And you could say, they have Josh Johnson, whatever. Yeah, but we're playing math. We're not playing like what I think is going to happen. The Redskins also need to lose 2 of their final 3 games against the Jaguars, Titans, and Eagles. So you add it all up, it's 2 by the Redskins, 2 by the Eagles is 4, 2 by the Panthers is 6, 1 by the Packers is 7, 2 by the Vikings is 9, and all 3 for the Giants. So they need about 12 results to go go their way.
That's a hell of a 16 parlay in Las Vegas if you can, make it happen.
Las Vegas, LA, you could go across the street to the racetracks probably. Not that you or I have ever done that. I'm just saying you could. Yeah.
No. I've heard that such things are illegal now in the Garden State. So obviously they need a lot of help. And I think that there's a clear path to get to the postseason, which you wouldn't have thought was even possible going into the bye week, having lost to the Redskins, or when you left Philadelphia after giving that game away against the Eagles, where Pat Shurmur inconceivably forgot that Saquon Barkley existed after averaging well over 5 yards per carry in the first half of the game. Ryan, I think that if you had to peg the Giants' chances at making the postseason, I think as of right now, realistically, if you look at ESPN and the FBI, I believe there's still around a 2% chance, if that.
538 projections, which are a really good analytics site, still has them at under 1%.
Yeah, I think that there's probably about a 10 to 15% chance that it happens based on the obstacles that these other teams are facing, but it's still a long shot.
Yeah, it's the longest of long shots. I mean, if the Giants got in, it would really be some sort of Cinderella story of everything breaking exactly the right way. I mean, but of all those teams, who do you think is going to be the 6th seed? None of those teams impress me.
No, if I'm looking out off of the situations that they have the rest of the way. I still think the Eagles lose 2 out of 3, which would essentially eliminate them. But I look at that group, the Eagles might be the best of the bunch, even with Nick Foles.
Yeah.
And it's going to take a Herculean task for them to win
the Packers?
2 of their final 3. The Packers,
they have the best player.
They do with Aaron Rodgers, but they'd still have to beat the Bears in Soldier Field. And don't forget, that's a revenge situation for Chicago for them coughing up the season opener in prime time at Lambeau Field. So, I mean, this is a complete mess, the bottom part of the NFC. So I think if I were a betting man and I had to place my bet on which team winds up making the postseason, I think the Eagles have the best team, the Packers have the best player. I think the Panthers, to me, would be my best bet to actually go, because all it takes, quote-unquote, is beating the Saints once and beating the Falcons. And I think the Panthers with Cam Newton and Christian McCaffrey are a better team than Atlanta right now.
It's boring. I'll pick the Vikings. I'll say the Vikings. They're the team that has it right now. They own that spot. They have the easiest schedule, I think, of the teams left. Just beat the Dolphins and the Lions. I know they just made a coordinator change. I mean, look, I'll give you a ton of credit. You were on Mitch Trubisky and the Bears all year. I'll give me some credit for this. I never understood paying Kirk Cousins $84 million.
You're right.
I think that was just about, a free agent quarterback. You never see those. They always get locked up before they hit free agency.
Look what we did with Case Keenum last year. Look how much better Kirk Cousins is than Case Keenum. Right?
I saw Kirk Cousins twice a year play the Giants and was never impressed. So, look, he's a good NFL starting quarterback, but the idea that he was going to be the thing missing to take them to the Super Bowl, I always thought was a little crazy.
He's certainly not the answer. And you look at what happened in Minnesota with that offense and the turmoil behind the scenes with Mike Zimmer and John DeFilippo and the philosophical differences. I think it all traces back to them investing and making a poor investment in Kirk Cousins as the quarterback. So, look, can they win what they need to win? 2 out of the last 3?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's possible, but I think it's going to be a pretty massive turnaround for them in a state of flux as an offense.
This is a Giants podcast, so we should mention that the guy who replaced DeFilippo is Kevin Stefanski, who's the son of the former Nets and 76ers general manager. And he was actually Pat Shurmur's first choice to be Giants offensive coordinator. Shurmur was always going to call the plays,
right?
But this quarterback's coach role / advisor to Shurmur that Mike Shula has was originally going to be Kevin Stefanski.
And he's a free agent at the end of this year, by the way. His contract runs through 2018.
And if the Vikings make the playoffs, they'll probably want to keep him. He's been there since 2006. He'll probably want to stay. He's getting his opportunity. The Giants won't be a promotion for him now like it would have been last offseason.
If assuming it works out and
Zimmer doesn't get canned.
And it would probably be a step back if he's still on that roster, because if he would come to New York, Pat Shurmur's going to call the plays with the Giants, whereas if he stays with Mike Zimmer, and if Mike Zimmer stays, I wrote this week that I think there's a pretty good chance that they made DeFilippo the scapegoat because it was an act of self-preservation on Zimmer's part. But if Zimmer stays, you look at Stefanski, he's essentially the head coach of the offense. He's calling the plays. So outside of a significant raise financially, there's no incentive for him to come take the Giants' job next year.
And the one thing, look, I always get a little sticky about this, especially in my college football covering background, is we're talking about an opening that doesn't exist. I mean, let's be clear. There's no indication at all out of East Rutherford that Mike Shula will not be back right now. So let's just put that out there. There's nothing to suggest that.
Just a lot of potential offseason talk further on down the line. But you look at the Giants and their situation right now. Ryan, I don't think any of us, you, myself, any of the other reporters on the beat, any of us predicted the Giants would go down to Washington and summarily, bench Mark Sanchez, take a 40-0 lead through three quarters, and win the game 40-16. And
I picked the Redskins.
Shows where we were. I picked it to be a 9-6 slogfest. Going into that game with Sanchez at quarterback and the way those teams were moving the ball in the first quarter. But here we are. The Giants win the game 40-16. It was probably the most impressive victory of the Pat Shurmur era, unless you want to claim beating Chase Daniel in overtime and the playoff-bound Bears. But a very impressive win, and I think it has started to show you a little bit of a philosophical change on offense. And Eli Manning said it after the game, this offense now runs better when it runs through Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I mean, look, that was pretty obvious the first game after the bye when Saquon Barkley got 20 carries against the 49ers. It seemed Shurmur hasn't admitted this yet, and I don't know why he hasn't, but it seemed like the Giants went into the bye, did a self-evaluation, which they said they were going to do, came out and said, we need to run the ball more. That's what our offensive line is better at. That's what our personnel. We have these two tight ends, Simonson and Ellison, who are pretty good blockers. We have this running back who's phenomenal, and throwing him the ball isn't getting what we expected out of it. He has a ton of catches, but the big plays have really come running the ball with him. So they certainly made a philosophical change to be a run team. And look, that's where the Giants' bread and butter is. I mean, for years, the NFL now has been trending towards this pass-first, crazy offense league. But Giants, their fans will tell you, they like to be a Northeast, run the ball, pound the ball team. It's what their offensive line seems to be good at. It's what their tight end seems to be good at. It's what their running back is good at. So they should just, rather than keep up with the Joneses, shut the door in the Joneses' face and go back to football like it's 2007 when they led the NFL in rushing yards, or 1990 when they beat the Bills by just controlling the clock. Just do the antithesis of what everybody else is doing.
And I think there's a trend out there that we could be seeing, not necessarily the end of the quote-unquote franchise quarterback era, but I think there could be a beginning of a reversion back to that style of football. You look at teams that are having success right now. Ezekiel Elliott and the Dallas Cowboys are leading the NFC East. You look at, before this recent tailspin, you pair Cam Newton with Christian McCaffrey, a high draft pick, and of course you look in Los Angeles with the Rams with Jared Goff and Todd Gurley, who Gurley at one point was putting together an MVP caliber resume. Saquon Barkley with the Giants. I think there is now once again value in the running back position in an offense. And you look around the league, according to Pro Football Focus, Saquon Barkley is the highest graded running back in the league. Not rookie running back, but running back overall at 89.3. Nick Chubb checks in at 87.8. Melvin Gordon,
another rookie,
87.6. Chris Carson in Seattle, a little bit of a bust out there, 84.4. And Alvin Kamara at 84.3. So you're looking at these running backs playing key roles. You look at Barkley on Sunday, 170 rushing yards, career high, career-long 70-yard touchdown run, a 53-yard touchdown run, and you're starting to see him not only become the focal point in the offense, but arguably a leader in that locker room as well, even as a rookie.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, you think of Odell Beckham as the Giants' best player, biggest star, but it really might be Saquon Barkley and only 12 games into his career. And look, the part of that is you have to throw the ball to Beckham where you can hand it to Barkley, so it's much easier to get him the ball. And he's very good at catching it too.
Yeah. Kenny Vaccaro, the Titans safety, he basically echoed Dave Gettleman's comments, and he said, quote unquote, if God could make a running back, he'd make Saquon Barkley. Yeah. But then he also said what makes him special is the fact that he might not be Antonio Brown or DeAndre Hopkins, but you can line him up as a wide receiver, you can line him up in the slot, and he makes plays as a receiver as well.
That said, Odell Beckham might be the Giants' second best quarterback. So let's not just count him as a receiver, right? I mean, that throw he made against the Bears was crazy. Speaking of which, Odell Beckham is practicing, or is he not practicing?
Well, my ears
or is
told
he
me,
injured, or is he not injured?
My ears told me on Wednesday, listening to the head coach, that Odell Beckham Jr. would not be practicing. The exact quote is, "You guys will get this later, but Odell Beckham will not be participating in practice." He was out there in the walkthrough moving around. Ryan, we went out to practice on Wednesday, and what did we see? My eyes told me a different story than my ears. My eyes told me, oh, there's Odell Beckham Jr., and he was stretching, and he was going through running drills, and then he went through wide receiver drills during the portion we were able to watch practice. So this is all stemming from the Giants making him inactive for last week's game against the Washington Redskins due to a quad injury, and now it comes out that he was a limited participant in Wednesday's practice after the coach said he wasn't going to practice at all.
Yeah, look, here's the thing with like bruises and strains, they can be like a more fluid injury, I guess. You could tell me, I guess, that Odell Beckham went back in after Pat Shurmur said, no, I'm going to practice. And look,
which could have happened.
Yeah, if Odell Beckham wants to practice, you're going to say, okay, go practice. I mean, we know it's hard to keep Odell Beckham off the field, right? We know that. So I guess it could happen hour to hour, but just the idea that he wasn't on the injury report and then he didn't play, there seems to be a lot of mystery. Let's say the word mystery.
Yeah.
Seems to be a lot of mystery with this injury. Nobody seems to have a great grasp on what's happening with Odell.
No, I think that's fair, because I remember standing at Odell's locker on Thursday, and he was all smiles talking about how, even though the head coach said that he doesn't like playing the role of spoiler, Odell saying that if our season is over, I want to take somebody else with us. No hint of any injury happening. Then all of a sudden, by Saturday morning at about 11 a.m., we get the final injury report that Odell didn't travel with the team because of a quad contusion. And it was an injury that he suffered in Philadelphia against the Eagles, even though he caught a touchdown against the Bears. He threw a 45-yard touchdown off one leg against the Bears, seemed to be moving around fine all week in practice, didn't appear on the injury report, and then 24 hours before round one of the fantasy football playoffs, Odell Beckham Jr. winds up not traveling with the team.
I wonder who your number one receiver is.
Now, Basic Blues eked out a win in the first round over the Hitmen, owned by my father, but they threw a monkey wrench into the whole plan at wide receiver for my squad and a lot of other people's based on the reaction on Twitter to that story.
Yeah, let's not talk fantasy football. My season was over after my 0-5 start. It was not a good fantasy.
So twisting your arm back.
Yeah, and
does Odell Beckham Jr. play on Sunday against the Titans?
Oh, dude, I have no grasp. I don't know. I don't know if he would play if the game was in an hour. I just if I had to guess, I would say he probably
shots on the line in Indy on the final road trip.
I'd say no.
I'm with you, but you're going to make me take the other side for the sake of the bet, aren't you?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I don't believe that he's going to play, but for the sake of our bet, I'll bet you that he does play this week, so that we have something on the line, some sort of interest going into that game.
Does Kyle Lauletta play this week?
No, and I think that it might be a little while before Kyle Lauletta plays again.
Does he play against the Colts?
No.
Does he play against the Cowboys?
Yes.
Does he start against the Cowboys?
Yes. And here's my thinking on this.
Okay.
Again, we could swap out Kyle Lauletta for Alex Tanney, because that's what the head coach said on Wednesday's press conference. Let's not glance over that. Nobody seems to have picked up on that tidbit. It hasn't really gone viral. Oh, I did too, but it hasn't been written anywhere, and I haven't seen it leading NFL Network or ESPN or any of these places. What did you make of Pat Shurmur standing up there and saying, Kyle Lauletta is the backup quarterback for now, but we could always change our minds?
Yeah, that was not a ringing endorsement for the way Kyle played in his debut. Look, I mean, you shouldn't be changing your backup and number 3 quarterbacks regularly. I think they should just stick with him.
Yep.
What do I think? I don't know. I can't help but wonder, and I have no evidence to back this up, but I can't help but wonder, speculatively, if Shermer was told by someone above him, Gettleman, Mara, look, we got to get this kid in a game. Davis Webb didn't play in a game, and we looked foolish for not playing him as a rookie. We got to get the rookie in the game. We got to evaluate him. The only way they could do it is to put him number 2 on the depth chart. So,
and then he had the opportunity up 40-0 to get him in there. And I think that while we haven't confirmed this, I think you're going down the right path with this. And I'll go a step further. When Pat Shurmur made that little dig in the post-game press conference saying that some people wanted to see Kyle Lauletta, well, you saw him, I don't know necessarily that was a dig at the media, which we all interpreted it to be immediately. So we'll see how that plays out. But there wasn't a lot to like in Kyle Lauletta's debut, 0 for 5 with an interception. But here's the thing. It's his first taste of NFL action, mid-game, coming off the bench cold. He didn't get any of the first-team practice reps, and I wrote this after the game and took some heat for it. The only way you're going to get a true sense of Kyle Lauletta in an NFL game as an NFL quarterback is to dedicate first-team practice reps to him and give him a start. You have to prepare him like the starter, and build a game plan around him rather than throwing him out there and asking him to make 5 throws in a game that's already been decided.
I'm still not sure how this is not understood. It doesn't always seem like Shurmur gets it. It doesn't seem like other media people always get it. Fans don't always get it. The people like you and I who advocated for Kyle Lauletta to start earlier than he has, or to even play earlier than he has, no one is suggesting that Kyle Lauletta is a better player today than Eli Manning. In fact, I don't think he'll ever be a better player than Eli Manning was. But it's so simple. It's just about turning the page to the future once your season was lost. So, look, if you want to say mathematically the Giants' season isn't lost yet, that's fine. It'll be lost next week. So, it was never about that. I thought they needed to play Lauletta just to show what Lauletta had. And this idea that, and again, I don't know that Shurmur was taking a dig at Lauletta. We interpreted it that way. I'm sure Shurmur would say he wasn't, just like he wasn't taking one at Odell when he said Aldrich Rosas is hydrated. Yeah. But this idea that, Lauletta's not ready to play, so we can't play him. Well, you did pick him in the 4th round.
Correct.
The media didn't pick him for you.
In fairness, Dave Gettleman.
Well, the Giants picked him in the 4th round of the draft. So if he's not ready to play, or if he's so far behind,
that's on the coaching staff.
I mean, or it's on the scouting department for picking him where they picked him. That pick could have been a right tackle. That pick could have been a cornerback. So it's not our we want to see him play, so the media wants to see him play, so we'll show you how he's not ready to play. Well, get him ready to play.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Don't pick him.
And I think that I need to clarify my stance on this. Not that I haven't for the last 3 months on this podcast, in writing, on Twitter, everywhere, but there seems to be this notion that I thought that Kyle Lauletta was a slam dunk franchise quarterback. The reason, and let me spell this out for people, the reason that you treat Kyle Lauletta like a starting quarterback, which means giving him first-team practice reps and play him in a game, start him in a game, is so that you can evaluate whether he has the potential to be a franchise quarterback, whether he has the potential to start 16 games for you in 2019, or if you aren't going to turn the reins back to a 38-year-old Eli Manning who will count $22.5 million against the salary cap next season. If Kyle Lauletta cannot be a starting quarterback, then do you need to go and draft Justin Herbert or Dwayne Haskins or Will Grier or any of these other quarterbacks in the 1st round? That's why it was important, and still is important if you get eliminated from the postseason sometime over the next 2 weeks, to start Lauletta to get a clear evaluation going into 2019.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think let's call it what it is. Eli Manning's going to be the Giants quarterback in 2019. The Giants, just like last year, want a reason to make him the quarterback, and the last 5 games have given.
They want a reason to take Zach Allen out of Boston College with the number 10 overall pick him as an edge rusher to bolster the pass rush, bring Eli Manning back, and build continuity going into the future. And I think that Eli, if this is going to be the offense, if the offense is going to be hand the ball to Saquon Barkley 25 to 28 times per game, if the offense is going to be short, high percentage passes, and you're going to try to build a dominant defense, go get yourself an elite right tackle in the first or second round of the draft, go get yourself a right guard, then I can see it. Then I can see why he has the opportunity to come back next year, because the way they're playing, Ryan, I think the Giants might be 2 or 3 pieces away on offense and 2 or 3 pieces away on defense from being a legitimate contender, but I think one of those pieces in the long term is a quarterback.
Yeah, I think they're farther away from that. I think they're 1 or 2 offensive linemen away, 1 or 2 pass rushers away, 1 or 2 defensive backs away. I think they're probably longer than that.
Look around the rest of the NFC East and tell me how many teams are complete at every position.
I think the Eagles had a Super Bowl hangover. I still think the Eagles have a much better roster top to bottom than the Giants do.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but I look at what's going on in Washington.
To quote my buddy Ben McAdoo, the Redskins are the Redskins.
And always going to be the Redskins.
Oh, yeah. So, I don't actually mean that. It's me being facetious. Of course, the Redskins have won 2 division titles since the last time the Giants won one. That was a joke, folks.
Yep. So looking ahead to Sunday against the Tennessee Titans, you have Marcus Mariota, who's the closest thing to a franchise quarterback that the Giants will have seen. You look at Derrick Henry.
What do you mean?
Since the bye.
Okay, since the bye.
They played Carson Wentz. But
Carson Wentz is the number one, yes. Yeah.
Correct. But in this
other
stretch,
than that, yeah. I think Marcus Mariota stinks. I got to tell you. I'm sorry, I don't see it. The Bucs bench Jameis Winston. They're clearly going to move on from him. He was the number 1 pick in that draft. Yeah. Mariota was 2. I don't see it in Mariota. I don't think he is the answer for the Titans.
He's probably around the 15th or 16th ranked quarterback in the league.
Yeah. Well, so look, when I say stinks, could he start on half the teams in the NFL? Probably. He ain't getting you anywhere, though. That's kind of how I feel about Marcus. He's not worthy of the number 2 pick in an NFL draft.
No, we've seen that, and I think that it's going to be really fascinating to see what goes on with his contract this offseason, because you finally have a coaching staff. You got him away from the previous regime, who was so defensive-minded, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I'd like to see him around an offensive-minded system that tailors to his needs. But nevertheless, I think that outside of Carson Wentz, who the Eagles took the ball out of his hands to win that game in the second half, committing to the running game with Corey Clement and Josh Adams, I'll be really interested to see what the Giants defense is able to do against a team that has a legitimate NFL quarterback and a legitimate NFL running back.
Yeah, and the Titans offense doesn't really impress me. You picked 9-6 last game against the Redskins. I wouldn't be surprised if this game's in that 9-6, 13-9 range. It wouldn't surprise. Look, the Giants defense has suddenly has turnover-itis. Like, they suddenly are making all these big plays. They have 3 defensive touchdowns, turnover machines, sack machines.
Pick 6.
It's crazy, right? Where was all this stuff in the first 8 games?
Amazing what happens when the pressure comes off, right?
Yeah, amazing what happens when it's Chase Daniel and Ryan Fitzpatrick throwing passes.
And Mark Sanchez and Josh Johnson.
And somebody else. Nick Mullins. Yeah,
yes.
It's amazing. Look, I think the Titans offense doesn't scare me. Derrick Henry had that monster game, but he wasn't having a very good season before that. I think he was averaging like 60 rushing yards a game or something before that. Their receivers don't scare me. So I would think the Giants will be able to hold the Titans probably under 20 points or so. It's a question of, can their offense keep rolling the way it's been rolling? I think the Giants are averaging offensively something like 28.5 points in their last 5 games, and some NJ.com readers accused me of making a mistake and asked me to correct it because God forbid the beat writer actually knows what he's talking about. That's not counting the defensive touchdowns, because your offense can't be averaging points that your defense scores.
Yeah, correct. I think the Giants do hold the Titans to under 20 points, and they lose the game. I have the Giants losing this game 19-17.
Like a lot of those games in the first half of the season, that sounds like.
Well, you look at the teams they played in the first half of the season. The Jaguars Jaguars before they tanked.
Or the Jaguars.
The Falcons, the Cowboys.
Yeah.
These are playoff caliber teams. Yeah. The Panthers are in the mix. This is other than the Eagles. Other than the Eagles, this is the only real playoff caliber team with Chase Daniel at quarterback of the Bears being an obvious caveat. You put him in the game versus Mitchell Trubisky, it's a pretty big drop off there. I think that the completeness of the Titans team, a better quarterback than they've faced in recent weeks. I think it's a shock to the system of the Giants, and I think it's going to be a real close, ugly game. And the Giants have shown the ability to blow teams out. They've shown the ability to let a team back in the game that they had no business being in, both the Eagles and the Bears game. They survived the Bears in overtime.
Even Michael Thomas, I thought this was interesting, man. I didn't get a chance to write it. Michael Thomas had that pick in the end zone when the Giants were up 40-16 last week with like 4 minutes left. And Michael Thomas even said, we needed that pick just because we were starting to think, here we go again. Right. We need to finish again. It was really refreshing to hear somebody admit that was actually what they were thinking. And look, they were still up 24 at that point. It had
about 7 minutes to go in the game, if I have the timeline right.
I think it might have been the last maybe 5. But it was refreshing to hear him say that, because I think all of us were like, oh my God, wait, is this really possible? Could they really give up like 40 points in the fourth quarter?
Right.
And of course, it didn't happen. But it was neat to hear Thomas say that. Because really, it was that close, really that close to being 40-22 with the Redskins going for a 2-point conversion and make it a 2-score game until Thomas had that pick. So, the defense certainly needs to figure out how to close somebody out.
Yep, so we'll see how it plays out. I think I picked the Giants to lose 19-17.
I actually picked them to win. I haven't picked them to win much. I haven't picked them to win much this season. I didn't pick them against the Redskins, didn't pick them against the Bears. Can't remember if I picked them against the 49ers. Didn't pick them against the Bucs, I don't think. So basically, me picking them to win tells you the Titans are going to win. But
well, you can rip him on Twitter at RY Dunleavy. That's where you can find him. Or you can blast me for picking them to lose this week at Matt Lombardo NFL. We'll take all your tweets, hateful and otherwise. We'll take your 5-star reviews. You want to blast us? Blast us, but give us those 5 stars in the comment section.
Blast us with a 5-star review. Yeah.
That'll be a lot of fun. Ryan, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I think that the Giants, this way this season is headed, you really don't know what to expect these last three games. I mean, I think every time you think you have pigeonholed the Giants this season, they give you a little something different. So, the end zones will not be fans. The end zones will not have the Giants logo.
The only thing missing is going to be Touchdown Jesus. You'll get the diagonal lines in both end zones.
I've seen Touchdown Jesus.
Have you?
Person, yeah.
Wow, I'm envious.
Yeah,
that's one of my bucket list venues.
Yeah, I've been in a lot of really cool college football stadiums. Yeah. Touchdown Jesus was pretty cool.
Oh, I'm sure. So the Jets play Saturday night. No Giants logos.
Touchdown Jesus. That could be Saquon Barkley's name.
It could be.
There you go. That could be his nickname.
You got to get that in print.
Forget Saquon's. Touchdown Jesus. Touched by the hand of God. Touchdown Jesus. I love it.
There you go. There you go.
There you go. There's my parting shot. Touchdown. I'm gonna call him that from now on. Touchdown,
there you go.
Jesus.
And I'm sure he'll love that moniker. Yeah. He's Ryan Dunleavy. I'm Matt Lombardo. Find him on Twitter at RY Dunleavy. I'm at Matt Lombardo NFL. And of course, you can follow the pod at Talk is Cheap NYG. We'll talk to you next week here on the Talk is Cheap podcast.